Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Jimmy Dore and his good buddy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is looking very rosy. He's been making the rounds lately. Robert F. Kennedy made his bones as an environmentalist, was very positive in that, movement for years. And then at some point, he made a hard left turn into chasing down mercury in vaccines. Not a bad thing to do if it's a real problem and to go after. Since that time, though, the vast majority of situations where that exists or where it did exist, have ceased to be. They have moved on from mercury-based preservatives in vaccines that they may have done years ago. That said, he's just decided in general that vaccination itself is a problem. He doesn't trust anything that's in it anymore, period, end of story. And that's that. And we saw, if you were here this morning, you might have seen the description of what he says in this, but you might not have heard the audio unless you went and watched this video. And I have to say, let's take a listen to the claims that he is making in this situation.
Pentagon was very...
Hold on. Oops, I got to switch this over. Beg your pardon. One moment so that I can hear it normally and it doesn't loop back into this. Here we go. So this is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on Jimmy Dore's show as a guest. He's been on a bunch of shows lately. He always sits in front of the same bookcase for these things, and he's in the same outfit of like 5 other interviews because he did them all in one day. But here he goes.
Worried about actually launching a full-blown bioweapons arms race because they said nobody, this is very sketchy. The Patriot Act, exemptions are very sketchy and people don't even know about it. And so they didn't want to do it. So they took the money that Cheney gave them, $2.2 billion, and they funneled it through NIH. And it all went through Anthony Fauci.
Okay. So in case you're late to catching up, or he has a vocal cord paralysis issue, which makes his voice sound like that. And so he can be sometimes hard to understand. But his assertion here is that Dick Cheney was afraid of being found out as a violent neocon who plans to use the Patriot Act to control the United States or what have you, and decided that he was going to shuffle some money Anthony Fauci's way to make bioweapons, and he got him $2.2 billion through the Patriot Act because Cheney couldn't wait to take the funds away from Halliburton and give them to the National Institute for Health
Beginning in 2002, Anthony Fauci got a 68% raise from the Pentagon for doing bioweapons development.
Wow. And by the way, you can hear in the background, Jimmy's just looking at the ceiling. He couldn't be happier to find out these details. Like they don't even have to be true or checked out. Like this is Jimmy's big dream, that he is now finding out from Robert F. Kennedy that Anthony Fauci was paid by Cheney $2.2 billion and got a 68% raise in his salary to develop bioweapons, not the cures for them, not to work on them, not to make sure that if China or Russia or Iran or a rogue state or Al Qaeda ever tries to draft one, that we have a vaccine for them. No. To actually make bioweapons. Yeah, that's the assertion here. Not that, to like accidentally make it. None of that. And keep in mind, here, let's continue and then
And he got a raise of billions of dollars a year.
So Anthony Fauci makes billions of dollars a year.
To do it. And then he started that's when they started doing all this gain of function. And then in 2014.
That's when he started doing all this gain of function stuff. This is when he got billions of dollars from Dick Cheney to make biological weapons. All right, this is the guy who was fighting AIDS and who's been the head of the CDC and whatnot. Yeah, that guy just decided, you know what? It's time to make super anthrax. Whoops, hold on. Let me click on this. Oh, crap. Hold on.
it. And so they didn't want to do it. So they took the money that Cheney gave them, $2.2 billion, and they funneled it through NIH. And it all went through Anthony Fauci. So beginning in 2002, Anthony Fauci got a 68% raise from the Pentagon for doing bioweapons development.
Wow.
And
which is, by the way, illegal in violation of every treaty we're a part of. But that's Cheney.
Got a raise of billions of dollars a year to do it.
Look at Jimmy. Look how happy he is to find this out. Do you think he's going to be disappointed when he finds out this is largely horseshit and a juggling of numbers? Oh no, he's not. Wait, it gets better.
And then he started that's when they started doing all this gain of function. And then in 2014, 3 of those bugs escaped in high-profile escapes.
Okay, 3 of those bugs escaped in high-profile escapes. Do you hear what he just said? 3 of these gain-of-function bugs. He started doing this gain-of-function because Dick Cheney was paying him to make bioweapons, and 3 of those bugs escaped in very high-profile. This is a very high-profile escapes. 3 of them. All right, here we go. Whoops, sorry. God damn it. Why is this? Oh, because it won't play on that thing. Hold on.
From different labs in the United States. Fauci.
From different labs in the United States. 3 of these bugs, meaning viruses that Fauci upped by gain of function. Okay.
Built all these new labs at BU at Galveston to do his shenanigans. And so 3 of the bugs escaped. And
3 of the bugs escaped. 3 of the gain of function bugs.
They received publicity. They had smallpox and a lot of really bad things. And then
they received publicity, smallpox, and a lot of really bad things. So one of them smallpox, and then the other 2 are other superbugs. Right.
Congress held hearings on it. Everybody was angry. These bugs escaped, and 300 scientists, top scientists, sent letters to Obama saying, you got to shut down Anthony Fauci because he's going to create a pandemic.
Okay, 300 scientists. Hold on. Send Obama letter Fauci. Pentagon in charge by the 3 days ago. Pentagon bioweapon in charge of anti-Vax could have discourse. The creation of COVID, speaking of Tony Fauci, claimed by Tucker Carlson. Okay, blah blah blah. I see people referencing this. Yeah. Fauci says everyone's going to come in. No, this does not show a visiting constitutionalist. Nope. Accuses Fauci of developing bioweapons. This is on trending politics. This is I don't know where the source on this one is sketched. This is from Trending Politics News, yet another AI newsletter. Kennedy suggests the Pentagon was concerned about the potential consequences of launching a full-blown bioweapons arms race, in part because of the sketchy nature of the Patriot Act exemptions. The exemptions under the Patriot Act allowed for research and development of biological weapons for defensive purposes. But this provision, and by the way, that's the gain of function to find a cure for them, not to use them. But this provision may be open to interpretation misuse, leading to potential concerns about bioweapon proliferation. He continued, Fauci built all these new labs at BU at Galveston to do his shenanigans, and so 3 of these bugs escaped. This is the quote from him. This is actually from this interview now. Publicity, they made smallpox and a lot of really bad things, and then Congress held hearings on it. Everybody was angry. These bugs escaped, and 300 scientists, top scientists, sent letters to Obama saying you're going to shut down Anthony Fauci because he's going to create a pandemic. Kennedy tells Jimmy Dore he's been alleged, Okay, I don't remember 300 scientists writing letters to Obama about Anthony Fauci starting a pandemic, but apparently it was very high profile and not high profile at all.
And so Obama ordered a moratorium. And at that time, Fauci had 18 different gain of function experiments he was doing around the United States.
Yeah. So you'll recall. Hold on one second. I believe we have it. It should be in the. Is it in the Discord? Let's see. Hold on one second. We have the little moment. I know where it is. It's in my Notion. Hold on one second. I got to bring something up. Get out of here. Boink. Move this over here. So one of the big, stories about, gain of function was that Obama in this particular situation, shut it down, and Trump started it up again. Let's go to this guy right here, and then we'll go to, yeah, here we go. If I may, ladies and gentlemen, this little moment, if you'll recall.
Why did you allow the gain of function research to continue?
Well, I think probably people that worked for me looked.
That was administration did hit.
This didn't make sense, but I stopped that.
The Obama administration did hit pause on gain of function research, though, and that was lifted under your watch. Why did you allow the gain of function research to continue?
Well, I think probably people that worked for me looked at it, and at.
Oh, you mean the best people?
One point they might have done that, but ultimately what we did was we shut it off. We shut the whole thing off, and we stopped making payments that were approved much earlier than our administration.
Yes, security payments to make sure that pathogens don't get out of the Wuhan lab. But anyway, so here's Robert Kennedy, by the way, telling Jimmy Dore that the Obama administration stopped gain of function research. That Fauci, apparently the idea is that Fauci did this under the table or behind their back, through Peter Daszak and EcoHealth Alliance and that crowd. And I don't know if we'll see if he mentions Trump turning it back on.
But Obama ordered him to shut them all down, but he didn't.
Huh. Yeah, and I don't know why he doesn't cut to Jimmy. Why Jimmy doesn't show himself in that situation, grinning or looking at the ceiling during the part where Obama shut it down.
He instead moved his stuff offshore to Wuhan, where he could do it out of sight of these 300 scientists and nosy White House officials who were trying to shut him down. And they continued to do it with Ralph Barrick, the same people he was funding here, Ralph Barrick, wow, and Peter Daszak.
And somebody else saying, wow.
And they moved their operations to the Wuhan lab.
Okay, so Jimmy cuts off his own response to that in this clip, or it's cut off on there. So this is, I guess because it's really hard to go after Obama in this situation and do his, both pair of pants business. The next target is obviously Bill Gates.
Of the WHO. After China goes China, Bill Gates, then Germany, then countries fund the WHO.
Bill Gates gives more than China.
Okay.
But the U.S. was the biggest funder, and they may now be the biggest funder from a single tranche. But Gates is giving not only from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but he gives through Gavi and I think CEPI and UNICEF and Rotary. And if you add all those up,
and Rotary,
he's by far the biggest. He's $1 billion a year.
And so now this is his new idea going forward. After this big experiment failed and he admits those vaccines, he says those vaccines need to be fixed.
Is that what he says? They need to be fixed, do they? Is that a direct quote? Whatever. We're just paraphrasing.
Here's what he's saying now.
Make it, instead of 2 years, we should make it more like 6 months, which certainly, some of the standardized platform approaches, including mRNA, would allow us to do that. So, it took us a lot longer this time than it should have.
So now he wants to get a new vaccine the next time something like this happens. He wants to get it out even faster.
Right. I don't know why anybody would want to shorten the distance between a functional vaccine and an outbreak. Do you? Patricia, thank you so much for the super chat. A birthday gift from me to you in celebration of my 62nd trip around the sun. Well, I'm glad you're here. And I hope I'm making these these years mildly tolerable for you, at least, you know, be a bit of a cushion. So the big crime here, there's so much of this shit, and it drives me a bit crazy. There's so much of this stuff that it requires it, or even expects that in your brain, when he says something like, we want to be able to do this in 6 months, part of your brain has to go dun dun dun. You know what I mean? Like there has to be, it's like anytime the CIA is mentioned, you've got to go dun dun dun. They're behind the scenes. All of it has to trigger this I fucking knew it reflex in your head, regardless of the details of the circumstance or if it's just logical thought. Look, anybody working on vaccines wants safe and effective vaccines to any disease outbreak to happen quicker and better and be improved upon. And anybody who doesn't, I would guess that would be the dun 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 part. Like, we don't need a. Why do they keep trying to cure cancer? Dun dun dun. You know the people who are behind cancer are the people who know someone who's had cancer. Brum, brum, brum. So fucking stupid.
What do you? Would you have a response to that?
Do you have a response to that? Yes. Why? Yes. Well, if someone was making a vaccine and they were trying to save lives, they would obviously want it to be, achieve efficacy and safety sooner than 2 years, especially in a global pandemic outbreak that's spreading like wildfire.
Well, here's the very scary thing, Jimmy, is that.
Thank you. The very scary thing. Yeah, skip past all the details. Get right to the very scary thing.
They've got all of these biolabs now, and they're Gates and others are involved with this project called the Global Virome Project, where they're
dun dun dun. The Global Virome Project.
They're trying to collect samples of every virus in the world that can be weaponized. And Peter Daszak was part of it, the USAID, and
all the USAID. All the people who are trying to depopulate the earth.
An archive and an inventory. And then they're all working on, in 150 biolabs around the world, 40 of them in the Ukraine and in China and all over Africa. They're working on Marburg virus, Ebola, Zika, monkeypox, polio, all of these different viruses that they're trying to weaponize.
Or that other people might try to weaponize, and you probably would want some sort of a treatment and or a vaccine for. Why think ahead?
And now they're giving the World Health Organization, this is what Biden is doing, power to declare a pandemic emergency with no criteria anytime they want.
Yeah.
And so they can.
Wait, so who's saying yap in the background? It's got to be the miserable liberal in Jimmy's studio. But, okay, hold on. The idea, Biden, WHO authority to declare whatever, okay. Yeah. I don't know why I felt like this one was kind of a softball. Fact check. False claim about Biden, WHO, and U.S. sovereignty. Claim President Biden is giving the World Health Organization control over U.S. healthcare and national sovereignty, meaning that's what he's saying, that they could declare a pandemic and then we just follow along. Terrifying, says the Facebook post. The Biden administration is setting the stage to hand ultimate control of America's healthcare system and the U.S. national sovereignty over to the World Health Organization, reads a Facebook post. The post claims that the assembly will be voting on proposed amendments the Biden administration sent in January that would allow the organization to declare an international health emergency, nullifying the powers of nation states. posts generated over 250 shares in less than a day. Similar posts have amassed hundreds of interactions on Facebook and Instagram, but the claim is false. The amendments referred to in the Facebook posts are intended to strengthen a country's reporting measures on public health events. Experts told USA Today they would not grant the WHO any authority in the U.S. USA Today reached out to social media users who shared the claim for comment. Amendments will not give the WHO authority in the U.S. Drafted amendments in January to the International Health Regulations, a legally binding agreement between 196 countries to detect and report public health events. According to the Centers for Disease Control, we remember this. This is when, because you got to let people know that they want everybody to be legally responsible for letting any other countries know that there's an outbreak in your country. The agreement does not allow the WHO to dictate healthcare policy or create binding law in the United States or any nation, according to Lawrence Gostin, director of Georgetown University's WHO Collaborating Center on National and Global Health. The proposed amendments to the agreement won't change that. The amendments will essentially modify the procedures and speed up the process by which countries report health events. I mean, never mind the fact that this asshole is trying to convince us that that Dick Cheney took $2 billion that could have gone to Halliburton and gave it to the National Institute for Health and went, fill your boots, do your worst, knock yourself out. But now he wants us to believe that Joe Biden is signing over the sovereignty of the United States to the WHO.
Constantly, they could, if they wanted to, they can release.
If they wanted to, they can blah, blah, blah. Let's
stop you from mutating. It was the exact.
Hold on. Let's go back. This is the mRNA. Hold on one second.
And if you got vaccinated, that would stop you from mutating. It was the exact opposite. Now, I knew that.
Nothing will stop you from mutating, Jimmy.
And nobody else, none of my friends in Hollywood, nobody in comedy, nobody knew that.
By the way, Jimmy doesn't have any friends in Hollywood or in comedy.
That except me, and they thought I was crazy, and now they still think that, by the way. They still think that. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
They still think I'm crazy. Yes, they do, because you think it was an intentional bioweapon by Bill Gates and the WHO and Dr. Fauci.
I don't have anything to add. It was all about, blaming the vaccinated. It was about, the unvaccinated, and making sure everybody got covered, that you were intimidated into it, you were gaslighted, you were embarrassed, you were marginalized, you were
often on a ventilator,
vilified, and then
why, and all these terrible things. You were gaslit and vilified. People were rude to you, which on the back end, compared to dying of a disease you could prevent or killing a member of your family or your community that was preventable, is a little. I'm just saying, is if you're weighing those against each other.
It was, the pitchforks and torches. They were trying to get everybody else to put pressure on.
And if you got that,
it was pitchforks and torches. They were trying to get everybody else to go after you. Yeah, that's the. Yeah, this is the same shit. They took the money that Cheney gave them. I have the receipt for the $1 million donation by Pfizer, but it's December. When did Robert Kennedy meet with Trump? Huh? Donation accepted. What's the huge number? Pfizer. What is that? $10 million? You got there. Yeah, okay. Somebody's. I'm going with somebody who's just fucking with them. Yeah, and here it is in Italian. And by the way, we were warned earlier today. Jimmy Dore and Robert Kennedy Jr. discussed, but a video proves Joe Rogan was right about Bill Gates. Oh boy.
I wanted to show you this. Joe Rogan said this most recently about.
Which is essentially, fuck you, Wikipedia. Joe speaks.
Bill Gates and his investments in vaccines, and I think it's really good. Here we go.
Yeah, yeah. And Russell, oh look, it's a trifecta. It's shocking. You're kidding me. Joe Rogan had Russell on, and Jimmy likes it. Jimmy, you do realize that when Russell was on your show, he was just snagging audience, right?
Profited millions of dollars on the vaccines, millions and millions of dollars. It's all easy to find. And then once
post it.
He dumped the stock. Then he completely changed his narrative, and he started talking about how ineffective the vaccines were, and about how the virus wasn't as bad as we thought it was, and about it was mostly targeting old and obese people. Like, this is fucking wild, because this is the same guy that through the entire pandemic was talking about how great these vaccines are, and these vaccines are so effective, and they stop the virus.
Okay, so this is where Jimmy is, he's leaning closer to the camera. Maybe it's just because Joe is a hunk of burning love. This is where Jimmy got that whole thing about Gates wants them fixed now, or whatever.
They stop transmission, they stop infection, and all that was a lie. And he profited off those lies. Yes. And everyone wants to pretend that he's just like this amazing philanthropist. Like, no, he made a lot of money. This is motivated by money, and his entire career he's been motivated by money.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been a guy who is really good at monopoly, and that was why they went after Microsoft so many times for monopolistic practices. I mean, he's a businessman, and in that time, his business was the business of telling people things that he's not educated in. Right? He's not a scientist. He's not a
somebody put this together, by the way, of
virologist.
Jimmy isn't either, but Jimmy was right. And his friends in comedy and Hollywood still think he's nuts.
He's not a medical doctor.
He's not,
unlike Joe Rogan.
Not even a college graduate.
He was.
Jesus Christ. You can't dunk on him for not being a college graduate when he's the fourth richest human being on the planet.
This public health advocate on television telling everybody to go out and get this medical intervention that he would profit from, which is.
By the way, did anybody in the chat room get inoculated because Bill Gates said it was a good idea? Anybody that I've gotten vaccinated, everybody in my household has. Did anybody do it because they heard Bill Gates say it?
It's fucking wild. It's really wild that it's that transparent.
It's wild, kiddo. It's wild. I mean, we're living in crazy town. He's not even a doctor. He owns stock in these companies because he owns stock in every company. And then he sold the stock because it was going down because that's what rich people do. It's wild.
It's not like multiple steps in shell corporations. It's really difficult to find out where the money's going. It's like, what the fuck is going on? This is crazy how transparent it is. You're not even hiding it. It's
right, because he's not doing anything nefarious. He's just a rich dude who buys and sells stock. And he actually did believe it at the time. And then he changed his mind, if he did at all, which is, I'm not going on what he or Jimmy says.
Right there.
Hold on. Shall we check real quick? Bill Gates on vaccines, whatever. Rather pay for vaccine than travel to Mars. How Bill Gates took over the global COVID thing. Bill Gates vaccines are a miracle. It's mind-blowing. That's fact check. Bill Gates did not say he wanted to vaccinate animals to give them better genetics. No country had perfect COVID pandemic response. This is the most recent thing, I think. Bill Gates says no country gets an A for its COVID pandemic response, including the United States. I wouldn't say any country got it totally right. Nobody gets an A on this one. The Microsoft co-founder and health care philanthropist has both praised and criticized multiple world governments' response. Argued the U.S. did not act fast enough to take extreme quarantining measures like shutting down businesses and stay-at-home orders. The U.S. has proceeded to log a higher rate of COVID deaths per capita than any of the world's wealthiest nations since the start of the pandemic. In the future, countries need to have dedicated personnel, and they need to practice how they connect up with the PCR diagnostic industry. Gates, who published a book last year, How to Prevent the Next Pandemic, just to scare everybody. Dun, dun, dun. Some COVID responses better than others. Australia and about 7 other countries, we did not publicly name, noting that Australia's rate of COVID deaths per capita is still among the lowest in the world. It's currently at just 21% of the U.S.'s coronavirus death rate. The U.S. received high marks from Gates in one category, spending more than $30 billion to fund research and development of coronavirus vaccines. The U.S. gave that money to companies in multiple countries. Gates' advocacy for strong pandemic preparation isn't new. 2015 TED Talk, he warned about infectious diseases, pandemic preparation, blah, blah, blah. epidemics, like he and his, and the other page on this, if I may, he can't stand, he thinks vaccines are wrong. Here we go. When is this? Well, this is from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Is there no date on this guy? Yeah, I guess not. Okay. But this says, the Gates Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates pledged $10 billion and call for a decade of vaccines. Yep, they totally think they don't work. Today, our foundation will commit $10 billion over the next 10 years to help research, develop, and deliver vaccines in the world's poorest countries. We must make this the decade of vaccines. Vaccines already save and improve millions of lives in developed countries. Yada, 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 yada. Here we go.
And just to back up what Joe said, here is Bill Gates about a year ago, and he started to
a year ago
admit about the virus, what we all knew, and here it is.
And then at that point, we didn't really understand the fatality rate. We didn't understand that it's a fairly low fatality rate and that it's a disease mainly of the elderly, kind of like flu is, although a bit different than that.
So there he was admitting that the virus wasn't as deadly and as scary as everybody he made it out to be, so he could mandate vaccines that he's invested in. It was.
All right. Again, Gates didn't mandate any vaccines. And at that point, all right, never mind.
It turns out it was like the flu. Like it's just a really elderly.
Yeah, it was just like the flu. It was exactly like the flu. The flu kills nearly 1 million Americans every year and has killed 3,000 a week all year long.
People and people who are obese and comorbidities need to worry about it. So probably.
Yeah, and God knows there aren't people in the United States that are older or obese or both.
We shouldn't be injecting kids with that and healthy young people and giving them all kinds of things. And so here he is now.
Giving them all kinds of things.
Oh, after he cashed in his stock, this is what he says now after he cashed in his stock.
We also need to fix the 3 problems with vaccines. The current vaccines are not infection blocking. They're not broad, so when new variants come up, you lose protection. And they have very short duration, particularly in the people who matter, which are old people. And every one of those things is...
So that's what he's saying now after the...
And he's invested in precisely that thing. That's the whole point. He wants to ratchet up how well these work. Come on.
If I would have said that stuff, they would have taken my YouTube channel down. But now Bill Gates, the guru of vaccines, gets to say it because he already cashed out his money. He got $500 million. Go ahead.
Well, every one of those 3 things he said would get you deplatformed.
That's right.
Or I said them, which, they did. And we were saying that from day one. We knew it wasn't going to. I said in.
Ooh, from day one. Okay, first of all, the idea, if I may, that flu deaths and COVID deaths in the last 3 years are somehow comparable as far as volume. The Delta variant period alone took out more people than die of flu in that year in 2021 than the highest peak of flu we've had. So the idea that this is, it's like the flu. It's the fucking flu. It's the flu. It's not a big deal. Is hilarious garbage and an act of cruelty.
In May of 2020, I said these vaccines are DOA because in the monkey trials, the monkeys that were vaccinated had the same amount of COVID in their nasal pharynx once they were exposed to coronavirus as the vaccinated monkeys and unvaccinated monkeys had the same amount. So there's no...
Right. They had the same volume in their nasal passages when you squirted it up their nose, but it did not infect them and their bodies did not overreact and they didn't have the glassification of their lungs and they didn't end up on a ventilator. And that's the point. And the reason the torches were out for the unvaccinated was not because people gave a fuck if you died because you were unvaccinated. And even to some degree, after a while, realizing that in the case of the mRNAs, it did not stop the spread of it per se, but that you would take up a hospital bed that you didn't need to take up because you just thought it was a bunch of bullshit. Oh, anyway, so where were we? We're back in. I have these other. Oh, they're over here. Nope. Where are they? Back to this guy. Was it? Yeah. Yeah. So hold on one second. Let me get back over to where we were. And by the way, hi chat room. Hi guys. The flu hasn't killed, 1 million people in the last year worldwide. Oh, hey, Johnny Million. What's happening? Hi, everybody. Yeah, hit that like button because we're talking about this. Yeah. Yes, hospital workers went through hell, but it was just the flu, guys. It was just like the flu. Why is his face so red? He's embarrassed he has to be on Jimmy's show to spout his nonsense. I can't tell you. Maybe he's just peaked from running up a flight of stairs. It's hard to say. Yeah, hospitals do not get overrun by the flu. It's there has never been, and so far as I know, and maybe they know, maybe Robert F. Kennedy Jr. can tell us, or Jimmy Dore can tell us about a flu season where nurses were exhausted from having to prone patients so they wouldn't drown in their own fluids. 50 chemo patients die because 100 unvaccinated people took all the ICU beds. Precisely. That's what we're talking about. Yeah, we had freezer truck morgues. Exactly. Just like the flu. It's like the flu. That's how the flu works, guys.